Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome again to ER Emotional Response Podcast. This is Life Coaching with Inc. Hello, hello, hello. We're joining again on this fine Thursday, diving back into the topic that we started with the honor of having Sean Gross, who is the owner, director, and leader of E3, a recovery program. Awesome, phenomenal man that is doing things in his state and is sharing with the world on this podcast how impacting and how beneficial it is to know the different dynamics under recovery. And before,
how are you?
Good, I'm doing good. I'm doing great, Sean.
So excited to be back.
I'm so excited to have you. It's weird because before, earlier today, I came across two young ladies and just hearing their story on being with someone that is on drugs. I just would like to share with our listeners, if you're not battling or struggling with a alcohol addiction or a drug addiction, and you have a loved one or your significant other that's in a relationship, let me just share before we even go into part two, the importance of reaching out and getting help, reaching out and standing in a gap for them, if not praying for them on their behalf, fasting and believing in God for a better day, and not just standing there and being a beating board. Some people are experiencing domestic violence and rage under the hand of people that are addicts. And Sean brought up a key point in part one on how the addict, in their mind, they need it and they'll put it over. It'll actually trump food, water, bathing, their livelihood, just to get that need met. And part of that need might even be putting you over it and abusing you and manipulating you just so they can get a fix. And it's almost like Sean said, it's another character that comes out and it tells them to excuse whatever relationship they have going on with whoever is around them and meet that need by any means necessary. So get help. There is help. You can inbox, call, or text me. Sean will also have his information under the advertisements that I post tonight, whereas though you can reach out and get connected with professionals that can lead and direct you out of situations. It's not. It don't have to go forever. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be diving back into this topic, but I needed to say that because I believe that, things don't happen by freak of nature, and if it happens in repetition, it happens for a reason. So I know someone under the sound of my voice can either
absolutely.
Be encouraged.
And you brought up that sub-personality that I talk about. That sub-personality doesn't just develop. It's just not there one day. It develops throughout the years. And that sub-personality helps us manipulate people into enabling us. Whether it's giving us $10 a day because they don't want to hear us yell, kick, holler, or if it's someone that you're in a relationship with, you've manipulated and emotionally abused that person to conformity. Your sub-personality has, because it's survival mode. Now, both people would need help, right? So the recovering addict or the addict or the alcoholic would need help, but also the person, like you said, that's being abused, being manipulated, they need to go get help as well, because something in their past If you believe in the family curses, that, family dynamics repeat themselves over and over and over until someone breaks the cycle. If you believe in that, you would have to end up asking yourself, why did that girl who was getting emotionally abused, one, why did she stay? Normal people would leave right away, right? So there's a dynamic that keeps a person in a relationship like that. And usually it's that dynamic that says, I can fix this person. I can fix the addict. I can walk on eggshells to make sure that the addict has their drugs, has their alcohol. I'll even call in, for their job for them. And, when they're too sick to get up and go to work, I'll do the calling. It's called enabling. And they have a whole 12-step program out there for the enabler called Al-Anon. So, you can get free help. If you're out there and you are in a relationship, your loved one is an alcoholic or an addict, and you're feeling some kind of way, like you're walking on eggshells, you need to go to an Al-Anon meeting. And what they'll do is they'll start empowering you to make good, healthy choices for yourself. So yeah, it's a weird dynamic, but both people will need to go get help.
Yeah. And I don't think we by mistake dive into this and talk about it. The podcast is to enlighten, educate, and encourage. And
right.
More than anything, we're encouraging others. This is a heavy, serious topic. And tonight we're even talking about the most powerful side, the other side, the positive side of this recovery program. And so
right.
I will give Sean now the floor to even go into the part 2. But thank you, Sean. Thank you for even talking about the relationship component. I appreciate that.
No problem. So we left off, I think, on our last podcast, we left off trying to understand the habit cycle, right? Trigger, behavior, reward, and then crave. So if we're talking about developing new habits and routines in our life, because all of the habits and routines in our life have been negative, we're talking about using that habit cycle. And if you go out and you look for a job that day, what is one thing that you have to do? So trigger, I need a job. I'm broke. I got bill collectors. Behavior, I go look for a job. What's the next thing you need to do to make it a habit? You need to reward yourself appropriately. It needs to be a big enough reward and a healthy reward to make sure that you desire or crave to do the same thing the next day around. So, let's say you go for 2 or 3 days and you go look for a job and you find one and you reward yourself. You still got a lot of time on your hands. That might take 8 hours with travel and everything. So let's say you want to develop some hobbies. So you go out and you buy a couple seeds that will sprout into roses, and you get a little planter and you plant the seeds properly. So behavior, trigger, I'm bored because I'm not working. Behavior, I'm starting to develop a hobby. The third thing you always have to do is you have to reward yourself. So that's very important to remember, because you're using the habit cycle to create new routines in your life. Now, I've identified 9 very important habits that need to be implemented in your life for a solid recovery. We're going to talk about 3 of them, but I'm going to list them all if you don't mind.
No.
They are, okay. They are, the first 3 are assigning intent, assigning meaning, and assigning value to everything you do. The next three are practicing curiosity, practicing laughter, and practicing gratitude. And then the final three are gaining clarity, influence, and fellowship.
Go ahead, Sean.
So we're just going to talk about practicing curiosity, laughter, and gratitude. And if anyone wants to contact me and figure out and talk about what the other six are, I would be happy to do that. But let's talk about practicing curiosity. There's circuits in the brain that kind of energize people to go out and get things that are intrinsically rewarding to them. So, it feels good to go get them, right? This kind of thing might be money or candy. The same circuit that lights up when we go out and get money and candy and things that we find value is the same circuit that lights up when we're curious. So there's a certain feeling of, just by getting curious, there's a certain feeling of, this is great, I really like this, right? Because there's a study where they show pictures to people, and they have one of those helmets on that have all these sensors to areas of the brain. And when they show pictures to people, it might be like 5 or 6 very uninteresting pictures. But like 1 out of 5, a person will say, that's interesting, I'm curious about that. And certain aspects of the brain light up, and it provokes them to want to learn about it. So it's not the most fun thing in the world to learn about recovery, because nobody wants to go through the change that is involved in recovery. Well, it's not that nobody wants to, it's very hard to, right? It's very hard to accept that change. So practicing that curiosity and lighting those certain circuits up in the brain are very important. We might have a basic drive in our brain to fight uncertainty. Kind of like the more we know about the world, the more likely we are to survive it. So in a way, it's also linked to the survival aspect of our brain as well. And if you remember, I was talking about the amygdala being the third aspect of that brain that does the fight or flight, fear, anxiety. It controls curiosity, exploration. So when you've spent many years kind of shrinking your world down to 4 walls that you can control, and it's very little, because when you're an addict or you're an alcoholic, you shrink your world down to, I know what I want to watch on TV. I know what time I got to get up. Very little. Because you and I, and me with 12 years of recovery, we have a lot of decisions that we have to make throughout the day, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and as an addict or a practicing addict or alcoholic, we don't want to make decisions, so we shrink that world down. And anything outside of that world causes us anxiety and causes that amygdala to be compressed. And I talked about that Tuesday. So practicing curiosity, and if you can think back, I may be going a little off track here, but I like to talk about the primitive man. So primitively, we were hunter-gatherers, right? We had to go out and hunt. So we had to be hyper vigilant on what's going on because there were saber-toothed tigers out there. And we had to hunt our food. So if we heard a noise and we were curious regarding that noise, we had to then figure out, do we want to go figure out what that noise was? Because there's a chance that